Money Talks, I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. The Office of the Ombudsman finds support from the Philippines' largest group of government workers. Jose Arnulfo Wick Veloso, President and General Manager of the Government Service Insurance System, joins us live. And the trade deficit in July narrows to $4 billion. Central ng Pilipinas has lowered its key policy rate for a third straight meeting and signaled one more possible cut before this monetary easing cycle ends. The Monetary Board lowered the target reverse repurchase rate by 25 basis points to 5%, as expected by 20 analysts in a Business World poll last week. This was also the lowest level in nearly 3 years, or since November 2022. Rates on the overnight deposit and lending facilities were also reduced to 4.5% and 5.5% respectively. Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona called the rate a Goldilocks rate, neither too high nor too low. While he noted that it is in a sweet spot, the BSP chief said the balance could still shift depending on the economic data.
The Goldilocks rate can move a little bit. We also look at what we call the output gap. Are we close to capacity? Are we well below capacity? Or neither number is precise, so we have to use judgment in which to help us decide which one is the more important.
Remolona also said liquidity remains ample, with the Bangko Sentral using bills and government securities to soak up excess funds. Still, he noted other policy tools remain in play, including a possible cut in the bank reserve requirement.
I wouldn't say it's not on the table. I think we're just trying to look at the right timing for it. I think 5% is still too high.
Government Employees Association has expressed full support for GSIS President and General Manager Wick Veloso. PGEA, the largest group of government workers, praised Veloso's leadership, citing fund growth of more than 300 billion pesos since 2022. The group also warned against what it called political noise and stressed that due process must be observed. This comes amid Veloso's suspension over the State Pension Fund's multi-billion peso share deal with Alternergy. The Ombudsman said this violated the GSIS investment policy guidelines and was done without the approval of the Board of Trustees. Veloso was also under fire for the investments of GSIS in online gambling firm DigiPlus. The Government Service Insurance System is one of the Philippines' largest institutional investors, managing more than 1.8 trillion pesos in assets. The fund provides retirement, disability, and life insurance benefits to government workers, including school teachers, police, soldiers, and healthcare workers. Well, with us now for more is Wick Veloso, GSIS President and General Manager. Good to see you, Wick. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Cathy, and I'd like to greet your viewers.
So, how are you? I mean, it's been a month and a week since a preventive suspension came through, along with 6 other officials you work with.
It's more than a month, and it allowed me time to do a lot of things that I was unable to put a lot of attention to before.
But the attention that you still need to focus on is really to clear your name or names. What have you done towards that? Because I know that you've submitted a motion for recon a couple of days after the preventive suspension, but where are we now?
We've submitted our motion for reconsideration. We've submitted that within the regulated time. We haven't heard yet from the Office of the Ombudsman. There's a change of leadership again in the Office of the Ombudsman, so we'll probably have to wait again until the new officer in charge will be able to take a look at our response.
In fact, 48 hours ago, the president appointed the Visayas head, Dante Vargas, to the position. Might there be a change in the timelines then, or maybe the outcomes, as we see a change in the Office of the Ombudsman? So you'll wait for a response for your motion for recon.
I honestly have no idea. I leave it up to the Office of the Ombudsman to review our response and be able to decide accordingly.
Well, what were the key items in that motion for reconsideration that you're hoping would help lift the suspension you're in right now?
You know, Cathy, first, the issues with the Office of the Ombudsman. I cannot go on much details about what we have there in place. But one thing is certain. The GSIS, together with the rest of the team who reviewed this, followed all the guidelines. The suggestion that we have not reviewed the guidelines is totally off. You know, this is the business that we've been doing for the past close to 40 years of our career. To take a look at the parameters of what we can invest in, what the rules are, and we're always guided. So we are very, very positive with the view that we followed the instructions. And by the way, there's a note that we did not get the concurrence of the board. Please take note that the GSIS management is given by the board latitude to invest 1.5 billion pesos on two items. One, listed stocks in the Philippine Stock Exchange, or listed corporations in the Philippine Stock Exchange. Second, AAA rated bonds. So if you're within the listed two identified investment parameters, then you are within the guidance or the limit that has been set by the board.
So you're saying that you didn't need to seek approval for the investment in Alternagy shares because it was within the remit of a GSIS president and general manager?
That is the limit that we have. So that is why we believe accordingly.
What about for DigiPlus shares? Because when you take a look at the loss, presumably you've invested when it was reaching a peak of about 63.50. Right now that's fallen off because of the scrutiny that the government is giving the whole online gambling industry. Just looking back at it, what sort of investment decision-making came through in deciding to invest in an online gambling stock?
Cathy, let me first give you an insight. The GSIS has not just invested on this company of late. We've been invested here since the stock price was, or since it was barely new. And everyone else who's following the stock market knows that the company, A, is listed, and B, it is regulated. And therefore, listed, regulated allows us to be able to invest in companies that fall within the parameters of A, safety, profitability, and of course, this being liquid. And the GSIS has been following that kind of guideline ever since. Now, this is, as I've shared, a listed and legal corporation in the Philippines. And our investment here has actually given us dividends. We've already made 139 million out of the investment here. Alam mo,
But it
pag
is a
nag-i-invest ka
paper
sa...
loss of about, I mean, it's lost 69% of its value from its 52-week high. So how much of a paper loss did that sustain?
You have to take a look first at how much we've gained versus how much is the revaluation. And what I would rather say and remain focused here is, this is a company that we've reviewed with research material, given that they have applied for a license to operate overseas. In September, they are going to get their license to operate in Brazil. They've applied for a license to operate in South Africa. So when you analyze companies that are based or whose this is a holding company whose focus is on technology, on leasing real estate, and be able to also do the recreational gaming business. It's a combination of different businesses and falls within what we say is an admissible investment for the GSIS. So we've been able to invest. And please take note, 72%, Kathy, of our investments are in risk-free investments. And we are also looking at equities as a way for us to be able to find businesses that we can invest in the long term.
But that's not to say that it's all risk-free. There's a percentage of that that still allows for risk-taking. So as president and general manager of GSIS, how much of a leeway are you given to actually take risks on government pension funds?
Well, Kathy, you have to remember, our business is to be able to manage the fund safely. And as I've shared, 72% of our investment is in risk-free investments. 19% is in equities, 5% is in private equities invested in infrastructure, and 4% is in cash and near cash items. The investment in equities allows us to be able to be invested in businesses that will give us the return over an extended period of time. We don't look at this as in, I've invested now, let's take a look at the year 1, year 2, year 3. You look at it over an extended period of time. What is the business model of this company? What is their market? And if in the event that you get to see that these are businesses that allows you to be able to be invested and grow with the company, then we would like to take a look at these opportunities.
Well, some of those I've spoken with before we're having a chat now say that the investments you've made in Digi Plus and in Alternergy are bordering on insider trading type of conflicts of interest, that you were too close to the kitchen when you made these investments, possibly clouding your judgment on due diligence.
My first
what
time
have you to say to
it's
that?
my first time to hear that. Alter Energy is a company that was introduced to the GSIS by a financial company. They met with us. We've invested in Alter Energy during its IPO in March of 2023. We were able to get into the IPO. After a few months, they were able to win 2 more companies or 2 more projects, Alabat and the Tanay businesses, and they required more funding. And again, they approached the GSIS. Okay, to be close to the kitchen, I think is not appropriate in terms of how you describe it. But our team always does research and always does due diligence to be able to understand the opportunities that we have.
And what do you say about the criticism that you acted like a venture capitalist rather than the president of a government pension fund that requires extra fiduciary safeguards?
Kathy, to say that we're venture capitalists, we'll be able to say that the GSIS is doing that for the longest time. GSIS has been investors in equities or preferred shares for the longest time. This is not something new. We have not introduced something different. We have not introduced something that changed the whole ballgame in the GSIS. As a matter of fact, what we've able to introduce is to have the ability to understand the markets, take a look at opportunities by using data, by using research, by using all the available information at hand to be able to achieve your results of getting the return that you have. You know, in business, especially in equities, it's always called a calculated risk. Now, if all of a sudden they say, we don't want any risk, invest everything in government securities, we can do that. But the question is, what kind of return are you going to get? The GSIS got a return of 6.75 net. That's roughly 8.8 gross. Your government 5-year security is 5.77. On a net basis, that's 4.8. It's almost double, okay? Not really double, but it's a significant increase of what we have, considering 72% of our investments are in risk-free. Now, I just find it too sad that this kind of issues, they try to leak out during the time that the OMB case came about. You see, I've worked in dealing rooms. I've managed one of the biggest dealing rooms in Asia Pacific when I was working in Hong Kong. I've managed dealing rooms in the Philippines, okay, in the various institutions that I've worked with. Investments are confidential in nature. Then why all of a sudden are people leaking this kind of transactions? And then try to make it appear that, you know, the GSIS investment is rogue, when in the first place, these are part and parcel of volatilities in the market.
Okay.
Even if they say this is only 0.13% of the investment in the GSIS. You know, as dealers, we always feel bad when we lose money. We always try to find the best investment that allows us to always get the return. And volatilities, of course, are part and parcel of the business, but discussions about this not being part of the business altogether just floated after we've invested. This was not part of the discussion.
Well, it's
in the
certainly
past.
not going to be the last time that I'm going to invite you over to explain further the motion for reconsideration once response
Sure.
comes through. Thank you so much. Wick Veloso of the
Thank you.
GSIS joining us there. Well, the House is set to begin its own probe of anomalous flood control projects. Starting September 2nd, the House Infrastructure Committee will start looking into DPWH's implementation of these projects. The other panels included in the probe are Public Works and Good Government committees. The probe comes as some quarters accuse some lawmakers of having ties with erring contractors.
Dapat ho all-encompassing, no? Yung pong review ng all infrastructure projects. And very important din po na talaga hong hindi lang tayo limited. In fact, I think the mandate of the Infrastructure Committee is not naman just po on flood control projects, no? It includes all infrastructure projects, and more importantly, it includes a very expanded timeline.
Meanwhile, the district engineer who allegedly bribed Congressman Leandro Leviste is out on bail. Batangas police confirmed to News 5 that Abelardo Calalo paid 60,000 pesos for his temporary freedom. Calalo and other DPWH employees accused of corruption are now under preventive suspension, according to Secretary Manny Bonoan.
Si Calalo naman po, we have actually issued yung yung preventive suspension and yung show cause order, and then ganon din po sa mga tao doon sa Bulacan, suspended na po yung preventive suspended na yung mga tao doon, and lahat ng staff doon sa Bulacan, it's been taken over yung operations by the regional office.
Bonoan said an anti-corruption task force is now conducting lifestyle checks on DPWH officials, but he welcomes a third party to take over the investigation.
I have also created po yung anti-corrupt practice task force po na that will go over yung mga lifestyle, initially yung mga official dito sa DPWH. We would welcome po yung third party pag-iimbestiga ng nandiyan naman po yung Commission on Audit. Yung Commission on Audit are undertaking na po yung mga investigations on especially yung mga areas where there are suspected fraudulent projects.
The Transportation Department has unveiled a preview of the new Kamuning footbridge in Quezon City, which is set to be completed by December. The agency says the new structure will be safer, wider, and more commuter-friendly, with direct connection to the Kamuning busway station. The project aims to replace the controversial Mount Kamuning footbridge, criticized for its steep stairs and inaccessibility. The new design will feature 2 elevators and wheelchair lifters. The DOTR said it costs over 89 million pesos, funded through the General Appropriations Act Fiscal Year 2024 EDSA Busway Project. You are watching Money Talks. Coming right up, the Philippines is seeking exemptions from U.S. imposed tariffs on several exported goods. And our conversation with Angie Pasis of AIA Investment Management Philippines comes on next. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. The Philippines trade deficit slightly narrows in July. Preliminary figures from the PSA showed the balance of trade stood at $4.05 billion, down 17% year on year. Exports increased by 17.3% year on year to $7.34 billion, while imports also climbed annually by 2% to $11.38 billion. Meanwhile, the PSA revised its June trade deficit figure to $4.4 billion. Electronic products remains the country's top export and import commodity. The U.S. is still the Philippines' top exporting country amid the 19% tariff imposed by President Trump, while China is the top importing country. The government's budget deficit narrowed to nearly 19 billion pesos in July as revenues rose faster than expenditures. Data from the Treasury Department showed the Marcos administration posted a budget shortfall of 18.9 billion pesos, down 34% from the same period last year. The latest figure is also 92% lower than June's 241 billion pesos. Data also showed revenues rose to 472 billion pesos, lifted by higher tax collections from the BIR and customs, while non-tax revenues declined. Government spending inched up to 491 billion pesos, tempered by delays in big-ticket disbursements. But for the first 7 months, the deficit's already ballooned to 784 billion pesos, tracking toward the 1.56 trillion peso full-year ceiling. The Philippines is negotiating with the U.S. to exempt some exports from the 19% tariff imposed by U.S. President Trump. A trade official says the government is seeking tariff exemptions for exports of agricultural commodities, electronics, vehicle tires, bags, and aircraft parts. Trade Undersecretary Alan Gepti says some of these key items are not even manufactured in the U.S. Senator Amy Marcos believes any trade deal should undergo a Senate review to avoid placing domestic industries at risk. The 19% tariff took effect on August 7, but Gepti says about a quarter of the country's exports are exempted from the levies. For DepDev Undersecretary Rosemarie Edilion, the tariffs could lead to modest medium-term gains through trade diversion, but trim the country's GDP next year by 0.013%. With us now for more is Angie Pasis, CEO of AIA Investment and Management of Philippines. So good to see you again, Angie. Welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Mimi. Happy to be here, Cathy.
That'd be right. The Bangko Central's delivered another rate cut and is hoping to deliver another more, depending, of course, on data. What impact is that having on your fund in terms of the equities, cash, and maybe fixed income?
Okay, so the bond funds have actually been rallying. We kind of saw the decline in interest rates as the signaling of the BSP has been consistent. And if you actually look at the performance of bonds since the spike in June, it has actually dropped significantly. So year to date, right, our long-term bond fund is registering a return of close to 4%. That is as of August. August as of yesterday. Yeah.
Right. So are you extending durations, moving into higher yield credits, or maybe even shifting towards risk assets in the local market?
Okay. So our view is we like duration, right? And we're already there. What we're seeing actually, let's say risk asset, if you mean by risk asset, is actually equities. We're seeing still some volatility in the equities market, largely driven by the uncertainty globally. So what we've actually been advising our clients is really, when there are dips, we just pick up. What we're actually trying to minimize on is really on the money market funds, mainly because, if inflation expectation is actually well under control, and even if the BSP is saying we're already in the sweet spot, but if he's actually, our governor has signaled that, at the opportune time, we're going to cut reserve requirement ratio, then you actually want to favor bonds over money market.
Okay, well, what about cash, though? Are you fully invested at this point, or are you keeping some powder dry?
Okay, we always have a little powder dry, mainly because we're waiting for good opportunities in the equities market. but we're lighter than what we would normally be on cash. We're lighter than what we would normally be on equities, and we're actually heavier on the bond markets.
Okay, so what would you need to see to actually get heavier in stocks? What sort of conditions in the markets?
Okay, so we're just, if you look at the actual fundamentals of the Philippines, it's actually looking very favorable. The governor called it a sweet spot because the economy is in full employment, and we were expecting the consumer to recover. But the stock market being very illiquid is highly susceptible to global sentiment and flows. So it's really, when it's sentiment driven, it's gonna be you just actually take stock of value and pick up when there's value. So what are we waiting for exactly? The second round effects of tariffs on U.S. inflation and U.S. growth, it's still dividing the market. So what either we see the assurance, although we're seeing it now, but some assurance that the U.S. economy will continue its current trajectory, or we wait, let's say, for the impact of tariffs, because you haven't seen it yet, right? The full impact of tariffs on U.S. inflation, because that will actually have an impact on U.S. monetary policy, and to a certain extent, our own monetary policy will have to adjust, or even your secondary market rates will have to adjust to the relative difference in interest rates between the U.S. and the Philippines.
Got that. Well, thank you for keeping us up to speed on the risks and opportunities post the Bangko Sentral decision. Angie Pasis, the CEO of AIA Investment Management Philippines. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again on Monday, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day and a great weekend ahead.